All right, music fans, welcome back. Harmless Dave here talking about real music and the end of a great band or a once great band. And doing this, of course, in real time for a few real people out here just like you and just like me. Okay, music recommendation because I've been lacking. So this is the Leaf Adeliu Band, right? Not easy for me to say, but that's what it's called, the Leaf Adeliu Band. There's a close up featuring the should be hit song Rosalie. The album's called Mighty Fine. This is another band from the Netherlands. Okay. And I've found a number of these. And just by the artwork, you can kind of see what they're going for here, right? A little bit of an Allman Brothers thing going on there. Jam band ish, but also very melodic, very smooth, very fluent, very listenable. So give this a spin. You can stream it. I purchased a copy and took a couple of weeks for it to get here over this summer, and it's definitely worth getting. This will probably finish somewhere in my top 20 albums for the year as I take a different approach to doing that this year than I have in prior years. Anyway, let's talk about REO Speedwagon. Speaking of classic rock, so the bottom line is REO Speedwagon is breaking up because of Kevin Cronin. That's the reason. I did a video already about this, but I was looking at the history of this band. And again, I'm not an expert on REO, but I have a lot of REO people reaching out to me trying to fill in some details about what's been happening recently. But I'm going to go back in time. None of this might be related, but it seems to me that when Kevin came back to REO for good after he had left and then he came back in the 70s, um, he eventually kind of took over this band. He took over the sound of the band. Um, People like Greg Philbin left as soon as Kevin got there. A very good bass player just died a couple of years ago. And Kevin mentioned Greg Philbin and said something like, "Yeah, he was a great bassist, but his sound, why say anything negative? He just died. His sound didn't really do what we really wanted at the time," which, by the way, should be a plug for Bruce Hall, who took over for Greg Philbin, and Bruce Hall, who can also sing. You look back at Alan Gratzer leaving in 1988. At this point, the band had become pretty much a soft rock band, and you really can't dispute that too much. Um, Designed more for top 40 and adult contemporary radio than their early hard rocking days with Gary Richrath, who left the band in 1989. Now, Gary, people will say, well, he had personal issues, he had his own personal demons and so forth. But I think for about 5 years, he and Kevin weren't seeing eye to eye when it came to the direction of REO Speedwagon. And thus, Gary probably said, you know what? I've had enough. I'm out. It's too bad because he wasn't an original guy, but he was there in 1971 when they put out their first album. So I'm going to consider him an original member. He passed away a number of years ago. And yeah, he had his own personal issues, but could have been as a result of the direction of the band. I don't know for sure. I didn't know Gary Richrath, but um, he was a guitar hero, and he is often overlooked when people talk about great guitar players. Go back and watch the PBS 1971 uh, sessions that they did with Terry Luttrell on lead vocals and Gary playing guitar. This is a completely different band. This was a rock and blues band with an emerging guitar god, small g, obviously. Um, Luttrell, by the way, would later go on to be in a band called Starcastle, which is similar in style to bands like ELP and Yes, especially. To me, it sounds like Yes more than anything else, which shows you how different singer Luttrell was for REO. Go look up Lady of the Lake. That used to be an FM radio staple back in the 1970s, all 10 minutes and how many seconds worth. But a cool song, just as a throwback. If you haven't listened to that, check it out. So you could tell that there was some style issues, that people were coming in from different backgrounds, and maybe the record label was like, okay, I want you guys to, write some hit songs. Now, in those days, you could be on a record label for like 9 years without a huge breakthrough album, and the record label wouldn't drop you. Things were very different in those days. Um, Fast forward to more recently, though, you've got Neil Doughty, who was the only founding member left in REO Speedwagon, saying, you know what? I've had enough. I'm done with this. And Bruce Hall, who was the only other guy from the 1970s still with REO Speedwagon, needing back surgery. And so what we found out was that when Bruce left, apparently this was an opportunity to replace Bruce, who apparently wasn't in good standing with Kevin Cronin for whatever reason. And this is the big mystery. Now, the wacky stuff that I've heard is that Bruce Hall looks too old to be on stage. He's too hunched over when he's on stage. That could have been because of the back issue. I don't know. Does anyone expect these guys to all strike up rock and roll poses today? I mean, Kansas is still out there. They pretty much just stand there and play the music and people show up to see them. I mean, there are a number of bands that aren't going to be very athletic at this stage, right? What are they going to do? Run around the stage? Hey, I'm 80 years old. I'm going to go jogging around the stage. No. And if we're going to talk about aging, like I said in other videos, Bruce Hall against Kevin Cronin, I mean, who looks older? I mean, Bruce Hall doesn't look like, a public library librarian, okay? He kind of looks all right to me. I don't know. I've look, folks. We've seen worse out there, and as these bands get older, what do you expect people to do? Unless you're Rick Springfield, who, by the way, REO is hanging out with before they wrap things up, apparently. Unless you're Rick Springfield and you've got the anti-aging medication. Same thing with Ringo Starr, who's 84 years old and he's doing jumping jacks on stage. I don't know. It's kind of unusual. It's possible. I don't know if this music keeps you young or you just age like everyone else and people don't notice it as much. So the rationale being that Bruce Hall looks too old to be on stage. So we're just going to not let him come back. And that's Kevin Cronin. And everybody who has a stake in REO Speedwagon, I'm not sure how this all works, but apparently Neil still has a stake. And Alan Gratzer, who left, apparently has a stake in this band, which is interesting to me. So Kevin, knowing that he can't just control this, has decided to just say, okay, I'm done because I'm not letting him back in the band. What? That's ridiculous. He's been in the band for a very long time, since what, 1977, and you're not going to let him back in? I don't know. I don't understand that decision. I mean, these guys must really not like each other, or Kevin must really not like Bruce Hall, because Bruce was actually asked about this. Maybe a new REO could emerge, and Bruce was like, no, Kevin's our singer. We can't do that. He understands the power of branding and having a familiar, well-known lead singer. This obviously could be not a positive thing in this situation, but Bruce understands that. And Bruce isn't saying, hey, we can just go out and replace Kevin Cronin. I wish they would come out and say, yes, we're going to replace Kevin Cronin. We're going to do it. We've got this brand. We're not going to lose this brand. We're going to all go back out there. We're going to bring in some special guest performers, and we're going to continue doing what we've been doing, at least for another year or so, and we'll call it the end of the road for REO, just like Kiss did. but we won't go on forever. That'll be the difference between REO and Kiss. Um, Honestly, folks, there are some other factors here, and I'm just going to throw this out because it's true, and I don't know if this has made things a little more difficult over the years for REO Speedwagon. The vision of making this band more pop and less rock is a factor, I believe, in all of this. Maybe more so years ago, but it kind of set the stage for Kevin saying, look, my stuff worked. Your stuff didn't work as well. Although, say, Take It on the Run, that's a Gary Richrath song and one of the best songs the band has ever done. Um, but there are other songs prior to that which I'd rather listen to because I'm tired of hearing Can't Fight This Feeling every 15 minutes on adult contemporary radio stations. It's a good song. It made the band millions of dollars, but again, go listen to what this band was in 1971 and what they became, say, in the late 1980s. There's no resemblance to that band. In fact, you could say by the late 70s, there was very little resemblance. They were trying to pay homage to their beginnings here and there to not lose all of their rock and roll edge. But the goal really of this band was to create high gloss top 40 songs, some of which were very mellow. Anyone heard the song In My Dreams? Yeah, that took it to a new level. And it's not a bad song. It's just go back and listen again to Terry Luttrell. It's two different bands. You know, you went from like Jimi Hendrix to the Bay City Rollers. That's what you did. I don't know. I'm coming up short on the analogies here. This band became mostly irrelevant, and this is truth here, when Alan and Gary then left. All right. Those two guys leave. The band becomes pretty much irrelevant. They do an album. I think it was 1990, a chicken, a dog, a boat, and a goat or something like that. I can't remember the name of the album, but it was kind of confusing. It didn't do well. And that was with Dave and the Hitman playing drums. And those guys are good musicians, but not as good as Alan and Gary. Just saying. At that point, Kevin was kind of free to be the songwriter he's always wanted to be without, dealing with Gary. No restraints, but yet the band's chart era ended abruptly. Some of that obviously is due to the 90s, but they really didn't make much of an effort other than to give Bill Clinton a song for his 1996 re-election campaign, I think, if I remember, Building a Bridge or something. And that song, by the way, was, again, much like In My Dreams kind of a song, just completely different from what REO was known for. REO would get some of their mojo back when they went on tour because they realized they needed to play these classic songs from the 70s, Riding the Storm Out and stuff like that, Back on the Road Again, which, by the way, features Bruce Hall on lead vocals. And that might be a problem too. I'm not sure. Here's the deal, though. But what doesn't work is when the fans know that bands are just in this for the money and there's no chemistry out there. Journey is doing this right now. And I don't know how long Journey can do that without alienating fans. The difference is Journey is a lot bigger than REO Speedwagon. And so you'd like to go see your family of old rockers, right? And have them like one another and put on a good show. And yes, they're allowed to make lots of money, but at some point, if it's just about the money, you're going to be able to see right through that. You're going to listen to the music and say, they're just going through the motions. And they sound nothing like they used to. Kevin Cronin does not sound anything like he used to. Here and there, a phrase here, a note over there, and you say, okay, that's not too bad. But he was a much stronger and deeper and just all around better singer uh, in the early days of this band, like pretty much all of these singers. So for him to go out there as like, yes, I'm the man, everybody loves me, everyone shall bow down to me, and the rest of you guys can just hit the road because I don't need you. I'm going on as the Kevin Cronin Project or Kevin Cronin of REO Speedwagon. That's the new Facebook page. I don't know what happened to Kevin Cronin when he went into the hospital, but clearly, I don't know if he had like a near death experience and now he's telling everybody, look, I've got to really do the things I want to do in my life, which means to kick everybody from REO to the curb and move on without them and just do what I've always wanted to do, which is to play my guitar and be like a folk singer and a ballad writer. I don't know. Who knows? Maybe he'll go hang out and work with, Slash. I doubt that's going to happen. Um, he's going to find people who share his vision, who will hang on because Kevin Cronin is a name brand, but he's not the same kind of name brand that REO Speedwagon is. He's not Steve Perry level. Like Steve Perry could do this if he wanted to because he's got much stronger name ID and he's got solo music out there, which is respectable. Kevin has none of that stuff. So we shall see what transpires here. But it's sad that a once great rock band has succumbed to one person's vision of what they should be these days. That, my friends, is completely wrong. All right. So before I check out, here is Leaf Dealio again, the Leaf Dealio Band. And their album is called Mighty Fine. And if you like pictures of mushrooms, there you go. I mean, this is some good stuff, folks. I'm not featuring this because it's lame or it's kind of like, okay, I've got nothing to talk about. These guys are really good. And Rosalie, the first song on this, should be on the radio, should be on all good rock stations in the United States that play classic rock sounding stuff. But, they're playing Soundgarden now as classic rock. So I don't know. You're probably not going to hear that. You might hear it over in the Netherlands. Like if they have radio over there, you might hear it over there. So anyway, folks, thanks for supporting the channel, getting lots of coffee from people. Thank you for the coffee. YouTube members. Also, we have Patreon. Where keep in mind, I'm now having this problem where I can't keep up with all the messages. I'm trying the best I can, but I appreciate everybody on Patreon who supports me on a monthly basis. Because the algorithm, that Stevie Nicks video I did yesterday, told you the algorithm wasn't going to like that video. But I got some nice messages from people about how babies are important and precious and we should protect babies. And so I kind of agree that we should protect babies. I know that's a radical view these days, but anyway, I'm sticking to that point of view. I know the algorithm isn't, but I am. God bless everyone. Thanks a lot. And pray for the guys who were once in REO Speedwagon who probably need some work at this point. I don't know if they can all just retire. So maybe they'll find something else to do. And I'd love for them to put together a new old version of REO. I think that would be amazing, but I don't know if that will ever happen. So adios, amigos.